The bustling energy of Chicago O'Hare Airport was relentless that crisp autumn evening. Amid the sea of travelers, Logan Carter, a 75-year-old man with silvered hair and an impeccably pressed suit, stood out. In his trembling hands, he clutched a bouquet of fading daisies, their bright yellow petals a stark contrast to the deep lines of worry etched on his face. His tired eyes darted towards the arrival gates, brimming with a cautious hope that had sustained him through 5 years of silence. It had been a long time since Logan last saw his daughter, Amelia. She had left Chicago for Los Angeles, chasing the promise of a brighter future. He had supported her every step of the way, selling the family home, sacrificing his own dreams of seeing the world, and working long hours to fund her education at an elite university. His sacrifices had been for her happiness, her success. And now, Amelia was returning, not just to visit but, as she had promised, to take him with her. They would live together in California, and he would finally meet his grandson, Caleb, a dream that had kept his aging heart resilient. Logan glanced at his watch for the umpteenth time. The flight was delayed, but his anticipation only grew with each passing minute. For a man who had given up so much, this moment symbolized the reward for a lifetime of devotion. Soon, he whispered to himself, the daisies trembling slightly in his hands. Soon, I'll be with my family again. As the overhead speakers crackled, announcing Amelia's flight's arrival, Logan straightened his tie and stepped closer to the exit, his heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Little did he know, this reunion would not unfold as he had hoped. The crowd surged, and Logan's eyes scanned for the familiar face he had cherished in old photographs. When she appeared, her once soft brown curls were now replaced by a sharp blonde bob. Her high heels clicked purposefully against the tile floor as she dragged an expensive suitcase, her phone pressed to her ear, her face an unreadable mask of irritation. Logan's heart swelled, and he waved eagerly. "Amelia!" he called, his voice cracking with emotion. She saw him. For a fleeting moment, recognition crossed her face, but so did hesitation. She ended her call abruptly and walked toward him, her expression distant. Logan didn't notice the coldness in her eyes. He opened his arms and embraced her with all the love he had carried for years. "Sweetheart, I've missed you so much," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "How was your flight? And little Caleb, how is he?" Amelia stepped back, her smile faint and forced. "Dad, we need to talk," she said, her tone clipped. Logan's heart faltered. "Of course, dear. What is it?" Amelia glanced around, avoiding his gaze, her voice quieter now but no less final. "I can't take you to California. Things have changed. I'm moving to New York for a promotion. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Dad. I can't pass it up." The world around Logan seemed to dim. The daisies in his hands drooped slightly as if echoing his heartbreak. "But we agreed," he said, his voice trembling. "I have nowhere to go. I sold the house for you." Amelia sighed, her impatience thinly veiled. "I'll help you figure something out. Maybe a nursing home? I can send money, but I can't take you with me. You understand, right?" Logan stood frozen as Amelia glanced at her watch and grabbed her suitcase. "I have another flight to catch, Dad. I'll call you when I get to New York." And just like that, she was gone. The bouquet slipped slightly in Logan's hand as he watched her disappear into the crowd. Around him, families reunited with hugs and laughter, their joy contrasting cruelly with his solitude. Slowly, Logan stumbled to a nearby bench, the weight of years of sacrifice and love now a bitter burden on his weary shoulders. Tears he could not stop rolled down his face as he clutched the daisies, their petals falling one by one onto the cold airport floor. In the midst of a bustling terminal, Logan Carter was utterly alone. The airport, once bustling with excitement and chatter, began to quiet as night settled in. Logan sat on the cold bench, his mind replaying Amelia's words, each one a blow to his heart. The bouquet of daisies now rested on his lap, forgotten and wilting, much like his spirit. Around him, the hum of cleaning machines replaced the clamor of travelers. The bright terminal lights seemed harsh, exposing his loneliness to the few remaining passers-by. With nowhere else to go, Logan pulled his small, worn suitcase closer to his feet. He had packed so carefully for the move to California, a new suit for meeting his grandson, a photo album to share family memories with Amelia, and even a small trinket he had saved for her since she was a child. All these symbols of hope now felt weightless, like relics of a dream shattered in an instant. As midnight approached, a security guard strode over, his face impassive. "Sir, you can't sleep here," the guard said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Logan looked up, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't have anywhere else to go." The guard hesitated for a moment, but then shrugged. "There are shelters in the city. You can't stay here." Logan nodded numbly and gathered his things, his legs unsteady as he stood. He left the terminal and stepped into the brisk night air, the cold biting at his face. The streets were unfamiliar, and his body ached with exhaustion. He wandered aimlessly, searching for a shelter, but the few he found were already full. "Try again tomorrow," a tired staff member told him at the third shelter, not unkindly but with no solution to offer. Defeated, Logan returned to the airport in the early hours of the morning, finding a quiet corner to rest. His suitcase became his pillow, and his coat barely shielded him from the cold drafts of the terminal. Sleep eluded him as memories of Amelia's childhood flooded his mind. Her laughter as a little girl, her tears when she scraped her knee, her pride when she graduated. How had they ended up here? How had he become a burden? The morning brought little relief. Logan washed up in a terminal bathroom, avoiding his reflection in the mirror. The man staring back at him was not someone he recognized. His face gaunt, his eyes hollow. As he wandered through the terminal, clutching his suitcase, he felt invisible. Travelers brushed past him, their faces preoccupied with their own lives. No one stopped. No one noticed. Except one. "Excuse me, sir," a gentle voice called out. Logan turned to see a young woman in a janitor's uniform, her name tag reading Claire. Her face was kind, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "Are you all right? You look like you could use some help." Logan hesitated, embarrassment creeping into his chest. "I'm fine," he lied, his voice betraying his exhaustion. Claire frowned but didn't press. Instead, she offered him a small smile. "At least let me get you a cup of coffee." "It's on me." Logan nodded reluctantly, the thought of a warm drink too comforting to refuse. Claire led him to the staff cafeteria, where she poured him a steaming cup of coffee and handed him a simple sandwich. "Here," she said, sitting across from him. "Eat. You'll feel better." As Logan took a hesitant bite, the warmth of the food and drink brought tears to his eyes. It had been years since someone had shown him such kindness. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You didn't have to do this." Claire shrugged, her smile widening. "My grandfather always said, if you see someone struggling, lend a hand." I just try to live by that. Encouraged by her warmth, Logan found himself sharing his story. He told Claire about Amelia, about the sacrifices he had made, and about the heartache of being left behind. Claire listened intently, her expression softening with each word. "That's heartbreaking," she said when he finished. "I'm so sorry you're going through this. You deserve better." Logan shook his head, his voice bitter. "I guess I expected too much. Maybe it's my fault for hoping." Claire reached across the table and placed a hand on his. "It's never wrong to hope," she said firmly. "But people can surprise you, sometimes in ways you don't expect." Her words stayed with Logan as he left the cafeteria. For the first time in hours, he felt a sliver of strength return to him. He decided to find a quieter corner to rest and figure out his next steps. As Logan wandered, he couldn't help but notice the community forming around the airport. There were people like him, struggling, invisible, and searching for something, even if it was just a moment of warmth. He saw groups of weary travelers huddled together, parents trying to calm crying children, and even fellow homeless individuals seeking shelter. It struck him how disconnected everyone seemed, despite being in the same place. The spark of an idea began to form in Logan's mind. What if this bustling terminal, so full of noise and chaos, could become a place of comfort? A place where people could find help and connection, no matter their circumstances? It seemed impossible, But the thought gave him something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. Night returned to the airport, wrapping the terminal in an eerie quietness. Logan found a secluded bench near a darkened gate, hoping for a moment of peace. Yet, even in the stillness, his mind buzzed with questions. How had his life unraveled so completely? Could he ever recover from Amelia's betrayal? As the hours dragged on, a commotion disrupted the silence. Near the baggage claim area, raised voices echoed as two groups argued. Logan craned his neck, catching glimpses of security guards trying to break up the fight between travelers and a small cluster of homeless individuals. The tension in the air was palpable, each side ready to explode. Something stirred within Logan. He pushed himself to his feet, his frail body moving toward the chaos. He didn't know what he could do, but the sight of anger and division compelled him. "Stop!" Logan's voice, though cracked with age, rang out with surprising strength. The crowd paused, startled by the elderly man stepping into the center of the dispute. Logan raised his hands, his demeanor calm but firm. "There's enough pain in this world without us adding to it," he said, his voice steady despite the nerves in his chest. "Please, let's not make things worse." The crowd hesitated, their anger briefly replaced by confusion. Logan knelt right there on the cold tile floor, pulling out his rosary. He began to pray aloud, his words slow and deliberate. "Lord, we're all here because we've lost our way in one form or another. Help us find understanding. Help us see the humanity in one another." His voice carried through the terminal, soft yet powerful. People began to quiet, their curiosity piqued by this unexpected display. Travelers stopped to watch, some filming the scene on their phones. Security guards lowered their hands, their previous authority melting into reluctant respect. Even the homeless individuals who had been ready to fight stood still, their eyes fixed on Logan. As Logan continued his prayer, a sense of peace descended on the terminal. His words resonated, a gentle reminder of kindness and shared humanity. When he finally finished and stood up, the crowd was silent. A woman from the crowd stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. "That was beautiful," she said. "Is there anything we can do to help you?" Before Logan could respond, more people began offering small gestures: money, food, even temporary shelter. The sudden outpouring of generosity overwhelmed him. From a distance, Claire watched with a mix of pride and disbelief. She hurried to Logan's side, wrapping a protective arm around him. "You're amazing," she said. "Do you even realize what you've just done?" Logan shook his head, still dazed. "I only did what I thought was right." The following morning, Logan sat at the same bench, unsure of what the day would bring. He clutched the rosary tightly, his only anchor in a sea of uncertainty. Claire found him during her shift break, bringing him a fresh cup of coffee. "You're a bit of a celebrity now," she teased, pointing to her phone. Videos of Logan's prayer had gone viral overnight, spreading across social media with captions like "The Airport Angel" and "A Prayer for Peace." Logan frowned. The idea of fame foreign and uncomfortable. "I didn't mean for that to happen," he murmured. Claire grinned. "Maybe not, but it's brought attention to something important. You showed people the power of kindness." As they spoke, a suited man approached. He was tall, with sharp features and an air of authority. Claire tensed but quickly recognized him: Ethan Miller, the airport's head of security. "Mr. Carter?" Ethan said, his voice unusually polite. Logan nodded, unsure of what to expect. "I saw the videos," Ethan continued, his tone softer than usual. "I also heard about your situation. I can't make any promises, but I've spoken to the airport's management. They'd like to meet with you." Logan blinked, caught off guard. "Meet with me? Why?" Ethan hesitated before replying. "They want to discuss the possibility of you staying here. Officially." Later that day, Logan found himself in a small conference room facing Margaret Blake, the airport's CEO. She was a composed woman in her 50s, her sharp eyes betraying a mixture of curiosity and compassion. "Mr. Carter," she began, sliding a tablet across the table. "This video of your prayer has garnered significant attention. It sparked conversations about the importance of compassion in public spaces. I'd like to propose something unusual." Logan raised an eyebrow, unsure of where this was headed. "We'd like to offer you an honorary role," Margaret continued. "You would be a kind of unofficial chaplain here at O'Hare. You've already demonstrated your ability to connect with people in ways most of us can't." Logan sat back, absorbing her words. "What would that involve?" Margaret smiled. "You'd be here to support passengers and staff alike. Whether it's a word of encouragement, a prayer, or just a listening ear. We provide you with a modest stipend and accommodations within the airport. It's unconventional, but, well, so are you." The proposal was overwhelming. Logan thought of Claire's kindness, the strangers who had offered help, and the spark of purpose he'd felt during his prayer. Perhaps this was what he was meant to do. "I'll try," he said quietly. "For a trial period, if that's acceptable." Margaret nodded. "Agreed. Let's see where this goes." In the weeks that followed, Logan embraced his new role as O'Hare's honorary chaplain. He created a small corner in the terminal, a quiet space where passengers could pause, reflect, or seek comfort. Travelers began to seek him out, sharing their worries and receiving his quiet wisdom. He mediated conflicts, calmed nervous flyers, and even sewed a button for a businessman in a rush. Claire often stopped by, her support unwavering. Even Ethan, who had once been skeptical, became an unlikely ally. "You've changed the atmosphere here," Ethan admitted one day, his voice gruff but sincere. "People are kinder." Logan smiled. "Kindness is contagious." Far away in her sleek New York apartment, Amelia sat staring at her phone. Logan's viral video had found its way to her through a colleague who remarked, "This man's words are so moving. They remind me of my grandfather." She watched the clip, frozen. The man kneeling on the cold airport floor, humbly praying for strangers, was unmistakably her father. Guilt tightened her chest. Memories she had long buried. Of her father reading bedtime stories, of him cheering her on at school events, of his tired face after working double shifts to fund her education. All came flooding back. For years, she had justified her actions as necessary sacrifices for her career. She had convinced herself that her father would be fine without her, that her contributions from afar were enough. But now, seeing him on that screen, she realized how wrong she had been. She made a decision that night, one she could no longer delay. Amelia called her assistant to clear her schedule and booked the first flight to Chicago. "It's time to make things right," she whispered, though she wasn't sure where to begin. When Amelia stepped off the plane at O'Hare, her heart raced with apprehension. The terminal, once a backdrop to her hurried departure, now seemed like a labyrinth of reckoning. She clutched her designer handbag, unsure of how her father would react to seeing her after all this time. As she navigated through the bustling terminal, she caught sight of a familiar figure. Her father stood near a corner that had been transformed into a welcoming, quiet space. A small sign read, "Hearts in Transit," a place for reflection. Logan, wearing his worn but clean suit, was listening intently to a young man who seemed distraught. Amelia paused, watching. Her father's posture was steady, his demeanor calm and reassuring. The young man, after a few minutes, shook Logan's hand with gratitude and walked away, his burden visibly lighter. Amelia swallowed hard. She had known her father as a loving, hard-working man, but this version of him, a beacon of compassion and strength, was someone new. Summoning her courage, she approached him. "Dad?" she called softly. Logan turned, his eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, they stood frozen, staring at each other. Then, as the initial shock faded, Logan's expression shifted to one of guarded warmth. "Amelia," he said, his voice even. "I didn't expect to see you here." Amelia faltered, the words she had rehearsed on the plane suddenly insufficient. "I came to apologize. For everything." Logan studied her for a moment, his gaze filled with both love and a tinge of hurt. "You left me at a time when I needed you most," he said quietly. "But I've learned that holding on to anger only weighs us down." Tears welled up in Amelia's eyes. "I was selfish, Dad. I thought I was chasing something important, but I see now that I left behind the most important person in my life." Logan placed a hand on her shoulder, his touch gentle. "You can't change the past, Amelia, but you can choose what you do from here." Over the following days, Amelia stayed close to Logan, observing his work with the Hearts in Transit program. She watched as he comforted a grieving traveler, mediated a tense argument between passengers, and even helped a crying child reunite with their family. Each interaction was a testament to his patience and quiet strength. "Dad," Amelia said one evening over dinner at a modest cafe near the airport, "how did you become this? You've built something extraordinary." Logan smiled, his face lined with exhaustion but glowing with fulfillment. "I didn't set out to build anything. It started with a simple prayer, a moment of faith in a sea of uncertainty. The rest just happened." Amelia felt a pang of shame. She had spent years chasing titles and accolades, yet her father, with no resources and little support, had created something far more meaningful. "I want to help," she said suddenly. "I don't know how, but I want to be part of this." Logan studied her, his eyes searching for sincerity. "It won't be easy," he said. "This isn't about recognition or reward. It's about people, their stories, their pain, their joy." "I know," Amelia replied, her voice steady. "I'm ready to learn." Amelia's first real test came sooner than expected. One afternoon, a distressed mother approached the Hearts in Transit corner, her toddler crying inconsolably. The woman was on the verge of tears herself. "I've missed my connecting flight, and I don't know what to do," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't have enough money for another ticket." Amelia hesitated, unsure of how to handle the situation. Logan gently nudged her forward. "Listen first," he whispered. Amelia knelt to the toddler's level, offering the child a soft smile and a toy from a nearby donation bin. "Hey there, little guy," she said gently. The child sniffled but quieted. Turning to the mother, Amelia said, "Let's figure this out together." She contacted the airline, explained the situation, and managed to secure a seat on the next flight at no extra cost. When the mother thanked her with tears of gratitude, Amelia felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in years. Logan watched from the sidelines, his heart swelling with pride. "You're getting it," he said later. "It's not about solving every problem. It's about being there, even for just a moment." As Amelia became more involved, she began to see opportunities for growth in Hearts in Transit. She proposed creating a fund for stranded travelers, staffed by volunteers trained in conflict resolution and emotional support. Logan, though hesitant at first, recognized her business acumen could bring new life to the program. With Margaret Blake's support, Amelia secured sponsorships and donations to expand their reach. The program grew from a single corner at O'Hare to multiple hubs across the airport. Travelers began sharing stories of how Hearts in Transit had helped them, and the program's reputation flourished. Amelia found herself reconnecting not only with her father, but also with the values he had instilled in her as a child. She realized that success wasn't measured by wealth or status, but by the impact she made on others. Months passed, and Hearts in Transit became a cornerstone of life at O'Hare Airport. What started as a humble effort by Logan had grown into a full-fledged program, now recognized nationally. Margaret Blake, the airport's CEO, took great pride in the initiative, frequently showcasing it to visiting officials and investors. Amelia, now deeply committed, spearheaded efforts to expand the program. "This is more than just a space for reflection," she explained during a meeting with potential sponsors. "It's a lifeline for travelers, whether they're grieving, lost, or simply in need of a kind word." With Amelia's business acumen and Logan's unwavering dedication, they secured partnerships with local businesses, airlines, and even philanthropic organizations. This allowed them to implement new services, such as emergency travel funds, childcare corners for stranded families, and workshops for staff on compassion-centered customer service. Amelia's transformation did not go unnoticed by Logan. One evening, as they sat together in the quiet Hearts in Transit office, Logan spoke up. "You've come a long way," he said, his voice filled with warmth. "The Amelia I knew a year ago wouldn't have fought for this." Amelia looked down, fiddling with a pen. "I had to lose everything to realize what truly mattered, Dad. You showed me that." Their moment was interrupted by a knock on the door. Claire entered, a worried look on her face. "Logan," she said, "you don't look well. Are you feeling okay?" Logan waved her off with a smile. "I'm fine. Just a little tired. But Amelia wasn't convinced. She had noticed her father's increasing fatigue, the way he struggled to stand for long periods or catch his breath. She had urged him to see a doctor, but Logan, ever selfless, insisted he was fine. "Dad," she said firmly, "we're going to the hospital tomorrow. No excuses." Logan sighed, seeing the concern in her eyes. "All right," he relented. "Tomorrow." The next morning, Logan underwent a series of tests. The doctor's expression was grave as he delivered the news. Logan's heart condition had worsened. He needed rest and ongoing treatment, and he could no longer handle the physical and emotional demands of running Hearts in Transit. Amelia's heart sank. "But this program is everything to him," she said, tears brimming in her eyes. Logan, however, took the news with quiet acceptance. "I've done what I set out to do," he said, placing a reassuring hand on Amelia's. "The program doesn't need me anymore. It needs you." Amelia froze. "Me? Dad, I can't fill your shoes." Logan smiled. "You don't have to. Just walk your own path, Amelia. The program will grow with your vision." As Logan stepped back, Amelia officially took over the leadership of Hearts in Transit. At first, she doubted herself, fearing she lacked her father's compassion and wisdom. But as the days passed, she realized how much she had learned from him. She began to add her own touch to the program, blending his personal warmth with her professional expertise. Meanwhile, Logan's role shifted. Though his health limited his physical presence, he became the program's spiritual guide, offering advice and encouragement from the sidelines. He spent his days writing a memoir about the journey of Hearts in Transit, pouring his experiences and lessons into its pages. Amelia's son, Caleb, who had once felt distant from both his mother and grandfather, found a new sense of purpose. Inspired by Logan, he started a youth initiative within Hearts in Transit, encouraging young people to volunteer at the airport. Caleb's natural empathy and charisma made him a favorite among the passengers, and Logan beamed with pride every time he saw his grandson in action. Months turned into a year, and Hearts in Transit expanded beyond Chicago. Airports in New York, Los Angeles, and even smaller hubs adopted the program, creating spaces where travelers could find solace in moments of distress. National news outlets began to cover the program's success, and Logan's memoir, A Prayer for the Journey, became a bestseller. At a gala honoring the program, Margaret Blake announced that Amelia had been chosen as her successor, becoming the CEO of O'Hare Airport. The room erupted in applause, and Logan, seated at the front, wiped a tear from his eye. "You've made me proud," he said later that evening as he hugged her. "But more importantly, you've found yourself." Logan's health continued to decline, and he spent his final days surrounded by family. One quiet afternoon, as the sun streamed through the window of his modest home, he held Amelia's hand. "You've given me the greatest gift," he said softly. "To see this family reunited, to see kindness flourish. It's more than I could have ever hoped for." When Logan passed peacefully in his sleep, the world mourned the loss of the airport angel, but his legacy lived on. Amelia, Caleb, and Claire worked tirelessly to honor his vision, ensuring Hearts in Transit continued to thrive. The program became more than just an airport initiative. It inspired similar movements in hospitals, train stations, and even corporate offices. 1 year after Logan's passing, Amelia and Caleb stood at a plaque in O'Hare's main terminal, dedicated to Logan Carter. The inscription read, "In loving memory of Logan Carter, whose unwavering faith and compassion transformed this airport into a beacon of hope. His journey reminds us that no matter where we are, kindness can always find a way." Caleb turned to his mother. "Do you think Grandpa knew how much he changed the world?" Amelia smiled through her tears. "He didn't need to. He just wanted to change one life at a time." As they walked away, Caleb glanced back at the plaque and whispered, "Thank you, Grandpa." The terminal buzzed with life, but amid the chaos, Logan's legacy endured. A living testament to the power of faith, family, and second chances.